Welcome to the Creating Creatives podcast. Now presenting my mommy and daddy.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Creating Creatives podcast. My name is Roy Sampson. This is my beautiful wife, Shelly Lloyd Sampson, the founder of creatingcreatives.com. Don't forget to check out that website. There are awesome printables and activities for little creatives that you have at home. The topic we're going to be talking about today.
Creativity is messy.
We're going to be talking about how creativity is messy.
So do you want to tell them about, this is kind of a funny story we were talking about.
When I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm getting ready for work. So I'm a morning person. I would rather wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, get to work, have an early day, get home, relax. Whilst Shelly would rather stay up late.
I dream of being a morning person. Fun fact.
However, she's very creative later on in the evening.
Yes.
And so a lot of stuff happens. It's like the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus show up before I even wake up. And I wake up.
Especially over the summer months.
We're
about to head into my nighttime little
her
endeavors.
nocturnal endeavors. And I would wake up ready to go to work, go to the bathroom, have everything ready. As I'm walking into the living room, turn on the light, and there's stuff all over the ground. Even on the couch, there are like trays with activities on it on the couch. And I'm like, what the heck is this mess? I mean, the kids haven't even gotten up yet, and it's already messy.
Which is hilarious, because when you first told me this, I was like, wait, what? You saw that as mess? It's like, that's their stations. It's organized so that my thinking behind the whole thing, and this was the funny part, is I was like, I'm going to make stations. So when the kids get up, it's like Christmas morning and they're like, oh, wow, look at all these fun things we get to do. Instead of being like, where's my iPad or put on the TV. And so I would set up these stations, as I call them, and I would roll out we have yoga mats. I'd roll out the yoga mats and I'd set up like blocks and cars in one area, and then another area might have
the marble track.
Or the marble track. Yeah, it was
and
all.
Dominoes,
I tried to rotate it.
Legos in another one.
Every morning was different.
On another one.
No, I don't know if I'd have paint in the morning without me. Little
yes.
OCD about that, but I would try and switch it up every morning. But that's so funny that you saw it as a mess.
Yeah. So the point is, one, to me that was a mess. To Shelly, it was creation. It was creativity. When I was a stay-at-home dad, I tend to mitigate mess a different way. So I would just limit the things that they can play with, when they could play with it. You know what? You can only have one pencil. Yeah. Go draw. And you can only do it for half an hour. Whatever. Yeah. But I was very meticulous on the time. And so I limit their creativity in that sense when it comes to more of the tactile things. Yeah. And you're amazing with them on that.
Yeah. It's funny because I will do crazy creative things with them with arts and crafts. I'll be like, yeah, you can play with the glue and the Sharpies and all of these crazy things. But when it comes to cooking, I'm like, no, I will do that for you.
Wait, let me ask you a question real quick. But don't you like freak out when you wake up and the living room is a huge mess?
Oh yeah, I get up
while they're playing at their stations.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but I think, that has to do with me being preparing myself for that. So, and also knowing that it's going to be easy to clean up, right? So the cleanup is easy because the blocks go in the block bin, the marble track goes in the marble track bin, and it might be all mixed up. But it's like Zoe was learning about. Oh man, I don't.
So you just take the hit.
You're
like,
hit.
You know what? I'm gonna set all this up. I know it's gonna be messy, but I know it's gonna be messy, and I'll just take the hit.
Yeah, and because I would get more excited to see what they had done. With it than wake up and be like, it's a mess, because I wouldn't have set it up for them. It's like I wake up and I'll set them two things that I think they're going to do something with. Mm-hmm. And of course, they always do something else with. Sometimes they do what I think that they're going to do with it. Yeah. But they'll set these they'll set up like with the blocks and cars, this like crazy town. And sometimes they don't even look at the two things. I'm like, this is going to be great. They're going to use these two things together. And then they'll take the marble track and the cars, or like the marble track and the block, like the two things that I don't expect them to use. And they end up putting them together. So yeah, I get excited about seeing what they create more than the crazy mess, which then is easy to clean up.
Yeah. But I think I can relate to the sense that you grew up with a chef. Your dad was a chef.
Yeah.
So I think a kitchen mess is a little bit more easy for me.
It's weird because my dad was the same with me with arts and crafts with the kids. Like we were cutting with knives really early.
Yeah.
He taught us really young, but for some reason I didn't want to do that. I mean, I did want to do it with the kids, but you were always the one to be like, here's a knife and here's an egg and here's you just did it before I did it with them.
Yeah. Well, that started with, one time we were at a Chinese restaurant and then there was this lady with her toddler, and they brought the soup out and she's like, don't touch that. And of course, what does a toddler do when you say don't touch that? The first thing that goes in their mind is like, you know what? I have no clue what the word hot means.
Right.
So I'm going to touch that and figure out or discover what hot means.
Yeah.
So it really gave me this discovery idea was, you know what? Our kids need to discover things that are dangerous while I'm there.
Right.
Because they're gonna have to discover it eventually, no matter what,
yeah.
right? So whether I don't know, whatever you can translate that however you want. But for this, it was the word hot, right? And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna teach our kids what hot and cold mean. And so
that's right.
Zoe, she was about 1 year old, she could barely stand up. I was like, let's make Jell-O. We get a nice healthy treat at the end, and then at the very, very first part of it, here's a bowl of hot water,
boiling water.
Well, actually, it's not a bowl. It was the measuring cup.
Okay.
So she had a nice thing, and I was like, okay, just touch it right here. This is hot water.
Yeah.
We put the hot water in, and that's hot.
Yeah.
Put that down. Now this is cold water.
Like a science teacher over here.
Science teacher. It was like, so after mixing the hot water and making sure it was like, melted completely and dissolved completely. She's sitting there, splashing around. There's, of course, Jell-O all over her. And I was like, no, this is cold water. Bam. Like she knows what cold and hot mean. Right. Then she's like on top of the toaster. That's hot. That's hot. Like I don't have to tell her. She knows what hot and cold mean.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. And then with the cooking, I noticed too that you can teach them a lot of gross motor skills and fine motor skills in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I remember when Tristan he learned how to grip something. Like, so I put a spatula in his hand. I was making oatmeal. And so he was just sitting there holding the spatula like this. Yeah. And I was holding him and I was going like this. So his arm was like this with the spatula, barely mixing the oatmeal, especially when it got thicker. Right. But then as he grew older, he would continue to help make oatmeal. Right. Then it went to, these are all the ingredients. Yeah. Put them in different little bowls. And so he would be putting the bowls. And then he would be mixing. Yeah. And so he was never afraid of the stove.
Yeah. Which is funny because I would do this. I would do it without the cooking ingredients. So I'd be like, "Here's a bowl and some things. Play with them and make some sounds. Here's a wooden spoon and a whisk and a potato masher." It'd be like banging on things, pots and pans.
Yeah, I'm like, and we're making breakfast.
I know.
But I think one of the ones that tested me the most, I think, was the eggs. But it only did it for a little bit, and it was because I grew up in a third world country. Food was very, very. We rationed our food because we only had so much of it. And so with the eggs, I was like, you know what? I'm going to teach them how to scramble eggs. And in my mind, it was going to go perfect.
Of course.
The first was going to be perfect. So I showed him how to crack it. Of course, it cracked on the corner of the counter. Cracked, dripped.
Did not go in the bowl.
On the edge of the counter because it cracked before he got to the bowl.
Right.
And he was about 1.5, maybe 2 years old at this time.
He was really young.
He was really, really young. And I was just like, the gut wanted to yell at him.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then I saw his face and it was just a face of curiosity. It was like, it's dripping down the side of the thing.
Yeah.
And so in my head, I was like, you can either give in to your gut and scream at this little kid and make him afraid of
ever cracking an egg.
And then I was like, you know what? There's a dozen eggs in that box. It costs about $2.50 when eggs were $2.50 a dozen. And I was like, that's less than a quarter an egg. I'm like, my relationship with this kid and his memories are worth a lot more than a quarter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's another egg. Try it again.
Yeah.
And I think it took 3 eggs
Yeah.
for him to finally get. Well, I also learned I put the bowl in the sink, and I told him to crack it on the sink. So the next couple of messes were in the sink. But after that moment, every single egg he cracked was perfect.
Yeah.
From 1.5 years old.
He learned
Every
quick.
single yeah, he was just like, no eggshells, Daddy. No
He
eggshells.
did.
He would always
Well,
say
you
that.
taught him about the eggshells too, which was you teach him or taught him and still continue to teach him in a way where they learn what the end objective is, right? So, it might be messy throughout the process, but what's the goal? What do they want to end up? It's not just cracking the egg in the bowl, but trying to get it without the
no
eggshells.
eggshells.
Yeah.
You don't want to be crunching on eggs.
yeah.
Yeah, that's like the worst
Crunchy
thing.
omelets.
So you've also been dealing, I guess, with the mess of school stuff. Like, I don't even know how you do that, especially with distance learning. There's a lot of distance learning recently. And unlike as a teacher, it's easy to say, you know what, this is the schoolwork, this is the homework.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a parent teaching the same material, it's just all work.
Yeah.
But you had 3 kids
Yeah.
in 3 grades
Yeah.
with just work.
Yeah.
So how was that dealing with that mess? Because homework is creativity as well.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to inspire that creativity.
Yeah. You want to make them, just as you saw when Tristan, you didn't want him to break down with the egg, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's a
you saw
curiosity
face.
in his eye, yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same with the schoolwork, because not only are the kids feeling a tremendous amount of pressure on them, they feel the stress, and then I am feeling all the stress compounded.
Yeah. Tristan had heart.
Yeah,
Like breathing
he was
from the
really
stress.
stressed out because it was a lot of work. We're in this house the
Yeah.
whole time. We are not really in an area where it's easy to walk around outside, or we have a tiny little backyard, so it would be, go out there.
And we got
But-
the mics because on the last podcast, you could hear the cars going back and forth. So we're not going to just let them play out in the front yard.
Yeah, exactly. And so, he wasn't getting probably nearly as much exercise as he needed. And we had to stay, if I go out and take him out, that's a whole hour gone from our schedule. And we had Zoom meetings and all types of things. It was really, really difficult. But I think keeping a schedule, and then also I ended up going from one kid to the next kid. It was a constant creative, which is funny thinking about it now.
It was
In
very creative.
hindsight.
Yeah.
A very creative process, because you try and see what works, right?
Yeah,
So I would try one thing and be like, this is not working. And whatever you do, it was like the children were the eggs, and I tried not to crack them, because I was like, I do not want these kids to break under pressure, and I want them to love learning. And it was great when their teachers were awesome, and we had some really fun activities that they got to do, and activities that they got to see on Zoom too, and we're going to try some of them later on this summer. And so when they got to do that kind of stuff, it was a little bit of a breather in between the writing and the math and, that kind of stuff. But it was, it was a learning experience for sure.
Yeah.
It was a messy situation in my head. And the biggest thing actually was preparing myself for it, right? So not preparing myself and being like, okay, this is the plan for today. And if it doesn't go that way, that's okay.
Yeah.
And giving myself the grace to fail almost, or not fail, but
No, I mean, you have to look at it that way sometimes. Yeah.
Take another route, and take another path. And absolutely.
Yeah.
Because specifically, when I set up crazy, messy projects for them, arts and crafts and STEAM, science-y experiments and whatever, I always prepare the area, and I'm always prepared for myself. So I prepare myself,
emotionally you prepare yourself. Like this could end up in a battle of yelling.
So emotionally for the homework, I was preparing myself for what I was going to expect, and then in a arts and crafts way, It's the same thing I do. So it's like when I have we're doing a big messy project, I will lay out the table. So I set out the table and I put the paper down and I say, look, this is the spot that we're going to do that. And so I would do the same with the kids for their homework. It's like, okay, here's your spot. And fortunately, we have enough room. So almost everybody would be in a separate room doing their work.
So they don't
focusing,
distract each other.
Sometimes they would work great together, but set up their spot. So it's like, here are your pencils, give them something to make them feel a little bit proud about, and here's your special holder for this thing.
Gosh. Zachy loves that pencil with the eraser. I cannot get him to work with anything else.
I know.
I'm like, it's a pencil. Just take this one.
I know. He had to find a special pencil. Oh my goodness. But it's the same thing. And then I'd lay down the paper and then you just let the creativity happen. And you are prepared for the mess that's there because you're setting it all up.
Yeah,
You have the trays that you're going to do your experiment on. And yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things that really, really helps is that we have each other. Like we have very different strengths. We have very different thresholds. Like for you, you have a very good mess threshold, and for me, I feel like sometimes it doesn't feel like.
Because I feel like I don't too. Because I see our house, I'm like, it's so messy.
But at the same time, like I feel like I don't have a very thick emotional threshold. But if I'm in the zone, I can take a lot that the kids can dish out and continue to keep them creative.
Mindset is
huge. Mindset is huge. If I know that it's already a battle, as in that one time that you were trying to do the mission project with Tristan.
Oh, yeah.
And he just got disengaged. This was after already a day of math and everything else.
Yeah.
You're trying to get him to do the mission project.
Yeah.
And
it's 4th grade mission project. He has...
It's on a website. It's on the YouTube channel.
It's like 2 videos back. He did a video.
Watch it because it's really, really a lot of work from Tristan himself.
Yeah.
I don't do stuff for them. Like I'm not that kind of dad. Like I make him do the work. He did a lot of the editing.
But you're really great at pulling. So I will set a lot of things up creatively and make big messes there, right? But you, apart from cooking, which gets a little messy, but otherwise, which is so funny because I cooked cookies with Zoe today. But anyways, you will get their creativity going in such a non-messy way by interviewing them and making up stories with them. You do great interactive stories with them, and it's all imagination based. And which is perfect because for the mission project, you did mind mapping, right?
Yeah,
and taught Tristan mind mapping.
Well, he was having trouble getting his ideas out. Like to him, he just wanted to make this video. He was just like, I want to make a video already. Why do I have to write about it? Why do I have to plan it? I'm like, dude, we need to figure out what shots you have to have in your video. And for me to know that, I want to know what means the most to you. So I just told him, here's a blank sheet of paper in the middle. Write down mission.
Yeah.
Now what comes to your mind after mission? Don't think. Just write down. Boom. He just started writing and it turned into this huge collection of words. Mm-hmm. Right. And then I was like, okay, now look at how the words are clustered. What is important to you? And then we found out what was important. And then we put it on a timeline. Mm-hmm. What is the first thing you want them to see? Like, what do you want them to feel when they first watch your video? Mm-hmm. What do you want them to feel when they the last thing you want to see, the lasting impression that you want them to see at the video? And then what's the most important? Put that in the middle, and everything else is video fodder. Yeah. Right. But the mind map was key because it broke it down into pieces where he didn't have to think. Because if he had to think, he would have wanted to make it perfect.
You would have broke that egg.
It would have broken it. And there was he had to write that report. Mm-hmm. And for the report, it was what did you like about summer? Or what are you going to do this summer? Right. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, what do you like doing in the summer? I like this. I don't know. And then I was like, okay, what did you like doing about last summer? Did you like this? And I was like, Tristan, just give me one word answers. And forget the sentences, forget the paragraphs, forget the descriptions. Just give me one word. Yeah. Biking. Okay, cool. Biking. What else? Beach. Boom. And so that's what it took for that one project is just one word. Right. And I was like, dude, this is a great list. We have like you have this huge list of 5 words.
Yeah.
You only need 3 sentences for a paragraph. You got 5 bullets.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, so what sentence can you make with bicycle?
Right.
Like about summer. And so like we slowly started expanding it. And that's what you have to do to keep them engaged. And granted, I was emotionally checking myself with every single one of those bullets to make sure that I stay engaged so that I don't lose them. Like those eggs. I'm trying not to spill that egg.
Yeah. Trying to get his creativity out without getting angry or like
frustration, fear for everything.
Frustrated, right?
For anything, whether it's technical, whether it's artistic. Fear is the enemy of creativity. Fear is the enemy of innovation. Fear prevents you from taking risks. And if you don't take risk, you're not going to try anything new.
You know, it's perfectly put, because that's the thing. I think a lot of people fear mess, right? Because you don't want to clean it up. You're like, I don't want to make a mess because then I have to clean it up. But that's the beauty of kids and children, is they don't know that fear yet. So they are so curious and just want to touch everything and play with everything and make things. And I know for me, when I have to prepare myself for the fear or not the fear, but prepare myself to not be fearful, because I have to set up time. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to make sure in this time here, I'm just going to have a creative date with myself, or I'm going to sit down, and I love doing it with the kids because I steal so many of their ideas. No. So we sit down together. I do. We create together. We sit down together and we just make, and having the time is such an important thing to make sure you are not fearful of getting rushed, and now we have lunch, and then we have to go somewhere, and then we have to do this, and we have to do that.
Being aware of your time. And
being aware of your time. And so it's like setting yourself up for success to just be in the creative spirit and make something. And when you're in that creative zone, you're able to see something, and you're able to like have a big mess. And an example is when we went a few years back, we were doing Valentine's, and I had a creative session. I was like, guys, let's just sit down. We sat down in the arts and crafts room with all this paper, and we were just making Valentine stuff. We had no idea. There was no end goal. We were just going to create.
It's Valentine's Day. Let's do something.
It's one of your beautiful things that if you had walked in on us, you would have been like, what's going on in here?
Definitely. I do not go in the arts and crafts room when I hear voices in there. I don't go in there.
It was a big mess. But through the mess, I was able to see that when you folded a heart in half, it turned into an ice cream cone. And I didn't half of a folded heart looks like an ice cream cone. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, we've been doing this since we were kids. Never seen that.
Yeah. And so it was just this great idea that just kind of popped out of creativity, but it's like it might have been the way that it was sitting on the table or the paper it was next to. But I believe when you are allow yourself to create and make a mess, and it's not a mess when you're creating, it's a creative space, but seeing everything around you allows you to see, I don't usually put this object next to this object. And now all of a sudden I see that
because it's a mess, they're right
else.
Next to each other.
Yeah. Or you have different shapes that just happen to be lying down, and you look at it. It's almost like creating your own inspiration when you go out into the world.
When you make a mess.
When you make a mess.
Yeah,
I make my own mess and see what it turns into. But, it's true. I know I'm constantly looking for inspiration when I go out in the world, and just walking around and looking at shapes and seeing things in different ways. And so it's the same with a mess. When I see a mess in front of me, this is when I allow myself to be creative.
Well, those are really the two sides to the coin of creativity. One is one of the thing that I was doing with Tristan and the kids, where it's like I'm really trying to extract the ideas from their brain. So you're trying to make something out of nothing, right? And that's a creative process where you take your imagination. Now there's nothing here, now it's on paper. Or now as an entertainer, you're like, hey, there's nothing on this person's face. Now there's a smile. As an entertainer, that's what we do. We create smiles, we make them out of nothing. But then there's also the part of taking something that's broken, or taking a mess and then putting it in order. That's really creative as well. Because a lot of times you can't control what that mess came from.
Right.
And dude, like so many chefs have said, like, I discovered this recipe because I put the wrong ingredients in, and you know what? It's better than it was before.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that.
Yeah. You allow yourself, I think, when you just allow yourself to break boundaries and not be kept in an orderly, like, it's so much easier for me if you're in a room, and I guess it has to depend on the room. It has to be creatively organized, but when I see things on the walls and I see posters and inspiration and stuff around me to create, versus if I'm in a white room with nothing and everything's
And
hidden
by
in
creative,
drawers.
she means like lined up in order, because I remember putting hooks up. And then for me, it was functional because,
Oh,
like, you
yeah.
know what? This pan is this big. This pan is this small. So I moved the hooks
This is where
in
we
different orders.
realized-
So the bottom of the pans were all lined up.
Oh,
And then Shelly was like, why is it all crooked?
yeah.
I was thinking functionally. She was thinking visually,
Yeah.
hook-wise.
Yeah. Definitely more of a visual.
Very visual person. So creatively, but in order.
Yeah.
Which is funny because then I started sending her pictures of like, hey, look at this house. Let's see if you can spot the light bulb.
They
that's
were
a little bit off.
horrible. It was like these things that just had one thing wrong with
It's
them.
like
And you're
this.
like, oh, the annoying
Let's see if she
thing.
spots it.
Oh, gosh. So annoying.
Yeah, it's fun. Keep your relationships fun, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you also limit where the mess can go. So one
Yeah.
thing that I've never seen before that you do with the kids is putting stuff in trays.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've never seen that
It's a
before.
very Montessori thing.
Like Legos.
Montessori school girl.
My Legos were all over the place.
You try and contain the mess, right?
Yeah.
So allow them to, and yeah, just you want your kids, when they explore or create, you want to give them the ability to do that by themselves.
Yeah.
As they get older, more and more by themselves. And a great way to do that is start off by containing the mess, right? So whether it's a tray or sometimes it's a blanket, sometimes
Yeah.
it was the yoga mats. When I would put out the yoga mats, it's like, if I keep the yoga mat here, maybe it will stay on the yoga mat. Not
Yeah,
always
yeah.
the case, but the trays are a great example.
And picnic blankets. You've used picnic
And
blankets.
picnic blankets, yep. Lay out a blanket within, and it also just
You're like,
makes
stay
it.
in the blanket. And they're like, oh, we got to stay in the blanket.
But it's funny because it's almost like they do sometimes.
They
you know?
do.
Not all the time, of
Brush
course.
your teeth? No.
Yeah.
You know, clean this up? No.
Yeah.
Stay in the blanket. Okay, we'll stay in the blanket.
Well, it's kind of fun, I
Yeah.
guess. And that's another thing, having different options, right? So sometimes it's a tray, and sometimes it's a different tray, and sometimes it's a blanket, sometimes it's a yoga mat, but thinking of different things you always want to make it a new type of. Oh, I do this anyways, like to make things new, because when something's new, it's more exciting. They're gonna stay and do it longer than if they're like, once I give them something 2 days in a row, they're like, I'm over this game or this thing,
Yeah.
if it's like, I'm over this toy, but then you don't use that toy for 2 weeks or whatever, and then you put it back out again and they're like, this is amazing, but if you had done that 2 days in a row, I don't know, they just not into it. So
Yes.
keeping it sporadic, exciting, a little messy, new.
Innovative.
Yeah.
Yep. And time.
Yeah. Time. I
Because
think
because a huge part of being able to manage the mess is being able to emotionally be prepared for it.
Yes.
And I know one of the things that freaks everyone out is when you're sitting there being creative, and I've seen you get freaked out with this, is you're like, creative, and then I come home and I was like, it's 7:00.
it'll be more like, it's 5:00. It's time for dinner, or 6:00. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, but the fact is, like, being mindful of the time will definitely
alleviate stress.
alleviate a lot of the stress, because
Yeah.
the last thing you want to do, and this is for work, this is for everything, is not have enough time to do anything, because you're setting yourself up for failure
Yeah.
right away. Like, if there's something important that you wanted to do and you don't set aside time for it,
Yeah.
you're going to feel like, I didn't get to do that, and
Yeah.
you'll be stressed until you do.
Yeah. I do that with my work when the kids are at school and I need to get something done. I know if I need to do something creative, I have to start it early, or
Yeah.
I'm just not going to have time because I need to build into it, right? And then
Yeah.
give myself the boundary of, I have to have it cleaned up before the kids come home for the most part, because that's my OCD and I just don't want them to mess it up or whatever.
Yep.
And so building that in, but it alleviates the stress and helps you be more creative and allows you to really get into the creativity of what
Yeah.
you're doing, you know? So yeah, I think, and it deals with what we were saying about preparing yourself for the mess.
Yeah, yeah.
going to
And a big part of that is being able to take the time that you need for yourself so that when you are with your kids, you don't have to worry about being able to do the stuff that you wanted to do. So
Yeah.
for me, it's early in the morning. Like I said, I was a morning person. So sometimes I'd wake up at 4 and just start journaling because I'm like, you know what? Kids are going to be up in a couple hours. I want to be able to journal. I want to be able to write. I want to be able to exercise or whatever it is. And for me, that's early in the morning. And I know sometimes there were times where I've had to kick you out of the house. And I got this from a couple of our friends
It's good.
of where I'd seen that Shelly has just gotten it up to here,
I've depleted.
all her creative energy and the control.
My stress has gone up to here. My
And I said-
creative and
I'm like, we're having dinner
Patience have
and
gone
I
down.
don't care where you go after dinner.
Yeah.
You can't stay in the house.
yeah.
Like go dancing, go to your favorite restaurant by the beach, do whatever. But you can't
Yeah.
stay in the house.
Pre-coronavirus.
That was pre-coronavirus. There's dance
I
clubs
go
and
walking around the block.
stuff. Well, yeah, that's a quick tidbit for those of you who didn't know. We met swing dancing.
Yeah.
So that's where I would kick her out. I wouldn't kick her out to like any other club. It was swing dancing.
Trusted venues.
Trusted venues. We grew up with all our friends who we learned dancing with. We all started having kids at the same time. The only times we see each other now are birthday parties and
Drive-bys.
drive-by birthday parties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sad.
So sad.
I know.
So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Being able to manage the mess and expect the creative process to be messy. I know one of the things that in my journaling, the simple
Yeah.
act of journaling every morning is, this was from the Artist's Way. I try to journal 3 pages a day.
Yeah.
And
so good. It's such a great exercise.
So good. And the premise behind it is, since it's the first thing you are doing, you're getting to the most true thoughts inside your mind and coming from your heart, because you are journaling before you've watched the news, before you've looked at social media, before you've looked at anything. So it's your pure thoughts coming onto the page. However, the very first page is very, very messy in the sense that it is a struggle to get out because 1, I just woke up.
Yeah.
2, as you're writing, you're like, I don't want to do this.
A lot of it is, I don't want to do this.
Profanity,
I'm so tired.
profanity. I don't want to do
wanna
this.
do
This
this.
sucks. Da, 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 da. By the second page, you start warming up, just like running. And by the third page, you don't want to stop.
Yeah.
And the creative flow really, really starts to flow. And so a lot of times that creativity starts off very, very messy, but
Yeah.
it comes together very beautifully.
Yeah. If you don't allow yourself to get messy, you're not allowing yourself to get creative and really make something. You
Yeah.
know? I think allowing yourself to do it, preparing you know, the 3 pages when you write it, the first page is going to be crap. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, this is going to be a bunch of stuff that it doesn't make sense. And that's okay. It's like when you
It's
start
okay.
mind mapping. Yeah. It's like I'm mind mapping and
This makes
the
no
first-
sense.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's okay. The first ideas you put down when you're mind mapping, they're all over the place and they
Yep.
might not make sense and whatever, but that's okay because later on you'll organize it and
Yeah,
later
yeah,
on
yeah.
you'll see where you can connect the dots.
Well,
you know?
and these are the skills, and that's the thing that we really need to get our kids to understand if we want them to be creative. That, you know what?
Yeah.
The first part is going to suck, and it's okay.
It's okay.
You need to get past the fact that you can't think of what this story is going to be like.
Yes.
And it's okay.
Yeah. And it's a constant struggle. I know that and I struggle with it
Yeah.
all the time. And
Yeah.
I see it with Tristan and I tell him and I'll be telling him, the perfectionist, like, no, it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. And it's like I'm talking to myself. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, it happens with this podcast, believe it or not. Sometimes we just don't feel like shooting, even though it's only our second episode. But sometimes it's like, you know what? Let's just shoot it. And if it doesn't go the way we like, let's scrap it.
Yeah.
This is actually our third take. This is our third take. And the first one,
Ooh,
but it's okay.
it's okay.
The second one we felt good about, but we felt that we could do better.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, that's part of the process, not being afraid to do that mess, emotionally preparing yourself. Because after the first one, we easily could have just looked at each other and said, this sucks. We're never going to do it again.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's true. But you have to allow yourself.
That's kind of how I felt right after the first one.
Aw.
No, just kidding. I didn't feel like that. I've been failing enough to know not to stop.
Way more than me. Oh my goodness. But yeah, it's like at anything they say when you design your first website, you look back on it and it should be horrifying.
It should suck.
It should suck.
If it doesn't, you didn't launch it soon enough.
It's like fail fast, right?
Yeah.
So you got to do something, get it out there, have it done, and then it might suck, but you've made your mess now. On to the next thing, and you kind of, plus the more you do something, the better you get at it. So
yeah, and
that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, and that's what we want to teach our kids. We've always been proponents of, don't just tell your kids, you got to show it to them.
Yeah.
Like, don't just tell them to chase their dreams. Like, show them chase your dreams. I know Shelly's given up her career. I've given up my career specifically to show our kids that, you know what, now it's mommy's time to chase her dream. She wants to go for that producer title. Go. So I quit my job. We all moved to New York.
Oh, yeah. That was a thing that happened.
That was a thing that happened. And then we flip-flop. And one of the things that I loved about it is now I understand how you feel.
Yeah.
Because I was the one at home before dealing with the mess and trying to get this stuff to happen.
Yes. We're very lucky where we have both experienced the stay-at-home mom, the stay-at-home dad. I'm now the stay-at-home mom trying to launch another career and or business, just my own business, and came from the film industry, and now it's like starting from ground zero. It's so difficult. Yeah. But and dealing with the kids in school and putting them first. But you've been there too. And so he knows how I feel when he comes home, and I'm just like, good, take them. But I know that when he comes home, he also needs a breather. We're
we need to deal with that
mess.
We need to deal with that mess, and we know how to punt to each other. We know how to
tag team. We did that the other day with Tristan's homework. He needed help, and I helped him to a certain extent. And then I was like, I'm out. I get like, cannot talk to him anymore. You go. And then you were really able to.
And I think one of the big lesson when you have to deal with mess or anything like that is don't be afraid to ask for help as well. Like we're lucky we have each other, but reach out to a friend. If you are a single parent, gosh, reach out to a close friend. If you know us, reach out to us. We babysat for people who just needed a date night as well, and reach out to your network. Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask for help wherever you get it, because life is messy. We need to be able to deal with that mess together.
Yeah. And your cup has to be full before you can give it to anybody else. So you have to make sure you get your own time in and don't just give it all to those crazy little kid energy suckers.
Yeah. Because they'll take whatever you give.
We love so much.
And we want to be able to give.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So that ends our second episode. We hope you liked it.
Thanks for joining in.
And see you on creatingcreatives.com. There are printables over there. So if you have any kiddos, little creatives that you want to do activities with, visit creatingcreatives.com for some really cool ideas. Very, very small amount of ingredients, easy setup, easy cleanup. Yeah. Some of them are more complicated, but there's also some really good tips for how to keep like your glue from drying out.
Oh, there's
all these little creative tip page on their YouTube. So if you're watching this, then you know there's a YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button and
like and share.
And leave a comment, or if you have any questions, or if there's anything you want us to cover on this podcast. Yeah. Hit us up. We're also on Spotify and slowly trickling off to the other podcast platforms. We're just waiting for the platform to publish us. Creating Creatives Podcast. We are signing off. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Cool.
That felt a lot better than the first two.
Totally. Yes, it did.
That was page 3.
That was page 3. Oh my goodness.